because I know that you love history and I love too, I'm going to actually try and take us back even further into history, right? So we've spoken about obviously the Industrial Revolution analogs, but let's go back even further. We've talked about global trade a little bit, but let's go back to agriculture. In my book, as I was mentioning when we started, Ms. Mokyr, I start off from the advent of agriculture and I say, let's go back all the way there and think about the great eras that we've lived through. And I identify 5 or 6 of them, starting with agriculture. And I say that, much like others have said, once we make that transition from hunter-gatherer societies to agriculture-driven societies is where we really see modern society emerge and the complexity of the organization within society emerge. So I start there, and then I come to global trade, and I come to industrialization, colonization, and then I come to capitalism, and then eventually technology now. But if I go back to agriculture, and if I can ask you to go back to that era, let's think about why certain nations or certain regions, let's say the nations don't exist at certain regions, why do certain regions then, at that time, become richer than others?
Well, I think in some part that clearly has to do with things what you do with your agricultural products. So, for instance, one of the main drivers of the rise of prosperity in a pre-industrial society is, in fact, specialization and the division of labor, both regional and amongst individuals. So the one episode which we know there are 2 episodes that we know a fair amount about, is the Roman Empire and China under the Tang and Song dynasties, which is lasting basically roughly from about 600 AD till about 1250 or something like that. And in both cases, agricultural productivity and agricultural prosperity are enhanced by specialization. And the reason that you specialize in agriculture is no secret, of course. There's a great deal of heterogeneity in topographical and climatic conditions, and so it makes sense for the south of China to produce rice and the north of China to produce wheat. And then you send things along, along the coast or through the Grand Canal. And the same is true about Europe. In the Roman Empire was rich, or it got to be rich, because it was a commercial economy that was concentrated around mostly around the Mediterranean, and so they traded in the things that they needed, which is, of course, wheat and wine and olive oil and textiles and things like that. And so we know that these things were moved around at huge numbers. And Economics 101 explains that this division of labor, and this is in Adam Smith in the first chapter, the division of labor and specialization make nations richer. And the nice thing about it, which is every econ graduate student loves teaching that to the undergraduates, is it's a positive sum game. Everybody gains. The notion that if I trade with you and that makes me richer, therefore it makes you poor, that's nonsense. We know that when you trade, both sides get better.